Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Roots and Rebirth. I am your host, Afia Imara Rise. And of course, if you're not already familiar, my ladies are up here. Say hello, Miss Meek,
Hello, everyone. Hello. What a blessed Friday, a blessed Venus day.
Miss Angie,
Peace and blessings, everyone. Peace and blessings.
Miss Shawnee,
Hello, everybody.
and Miss Nina is making her way up on the panel. I want to tell everybody good evening. And tonight we're going to continue the Path to Self-Discovery, the series. This is part 2, our discussion on childhood trauma. Together we're going to explore how past experiences shape us and uncover ways to heal, grow, move forward with intention and always with purpose in mind. I'm sorry, you guys. Um, to do a brief recap and give Nina a little bit of time, I'm going to go over the definition of childhood trauma. So, childhood trauma refers to experiences during childhood that are emotionally distressing or harmful, often involving events that overwhelm the child's ability to cope and process what has happened. These events can include physical, emotional, sexual abuse, neglect, witnessing violence, losing a loved one, or experiencing instability in the home. Childhood trauma can profoundly affect a person's emotional, psychological, and physical development, often leaving lasting impacts on their sense of safety, trust, and self worth. Now, we talked about a lot of things related to childhood trauma, but before I let the panel take over, I just want to talk about some key steps as to navigating your way to healing. Number one, acknowledging the trauma. That's always important. You cannot change what you will not acknowledge. Seeking professional help. Now, it's a good thing to have people to talk to, but oftentimes you are venting and releasing uh, your deepest wounds to people who are also struggling with trauma and healing. They can only serve you so much, especially if they're not in a place of healing for themselves. Create a safe space. That looks like being free to speak your truth. We hear that all over the internet, but unfortunately, speaking your truth is not safe everywhere. You have to speak your truth in a safe space, free of judgment, where one can receive your thoughts without making you wrong for your thoughts, experiences, and feelings. Understand your triggers. Identify the situations, words, or environments that trigger the feelings of fear, anger, sadness, and work on recognizing the root of these responses. Practice self compassion. Be gentle to yourself. Acknowledge that you have gone through a trying experience and that is okay. No judging yourself for how you respond to those experiences. If you want to attribute that to being human, then do that. If you want to say, I've made mistakes, then do that. If you need to clarify for yourself that what I know now, I did not know before, so you can have a clear rationalization to give yourself acceptance and forgiveness, do that. Um, Developing a healthy coping mechanism. These are things that you're going to learn in therapy, like stress management and acknowledgement and a process when you get overwhelmed or triggered. Educate yourself. That also includes therapy. They will educate you on customizing your stress management and coping in connection with your trauma responses. And that's a healthy benefit to you. Set boundaries. Understand what your weaknesses are and understand when you are being taken down a path that can steer you in the wrong direction. Focus on the present. Work on grounding yourself in the present moment through mindfulness practices to reduce the influences of past trauma in your current life. And lastly, be patient. This is an ongoing thing. You may feel at the top of your game and completely healed and have a complete relapse and trigger within a year, within 2 years, within 10 years, within 20 years. This is all a part of the growth. As Nina once said, this is a process of healing. It's not about getting too healed. It's a long time process. You will be a parent, a grandparent. You will have different jobs and different experiences and still learn about your trigger all throughout that time. So don't necessarily tell yourself that there's an end game. Remind yourself that this is ongoing so you don't come down on yourself about your progress, because your trauma is not to be compared to the next person's trauma. Understand where you are and give yourself the allotted time. Your body will let you know when you're ready to let things go. Your body will let you know when you're ready to forgive. Your body will let you know when you're ready to talk about it and discuss it with people who are not in your safe space. Listen to yourself and be self aware, and do not force yourself to move faster than what your body is telling you. I'm going to go ahead and leave the next thoughts to someone else on the panel. You guys feel free to jump right on in. I'm going to check on Miss Nina.
Hi, ladies. Um, I wanted to see if I can give a another visual. The last visual we had was about if you step on a crack, you break your mother's back. But this visual, I think we can get another perspective on childhood trauma. And it's about how when we are young, we visualize what we want as adults. And when we grow up, we want to be successful, or we want family and children, and how many dogs and how many cats and how many cars and what the house would look like and everything of the sort. And I think some of the trauma that we could have is the ideas that we place on individuals that come in our life because of the ideas of what we want in our future, and how it affects us when they don't necessarily go to plan with that narrative, and we never realize it, that it is our perspective of what we want them to be that has caused them to reject us, or that has caused tension within ourselves or hurt within ourselves. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but let's say for this, we have our mothers, or we're mothers, and we want our children to grow up to be a lawyer or a judge, or a farmer or a banker. And then when they become an adult, they turn out to be something different from what we expect. And sometimes, if we're not considerate of that, it is mostly because we have seen what we wanted them to be for us, and not necessarily considered what they wanted to be for themselves. I think that can be part of trauma as well. Our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own misunderstandings and interpretations of what we want, more so than allowing the space for others to be who they are. And in that, sometimes, because my favorite statement is, um, the character you want me to be in your life is not necessarily the character that I am for myself. And so, with that, we could cause ourselves a lot more problems, not realizing how our own mind has played an idea for somebody else's life according to ours, and we have resentment or hurt or agitation to them because of these things, and we don't realize the hurt that we could cause to others and the hurt that we cause to ourselves because of it. Now, I don't mind taking this panel on. But if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to, get a deeper understanding as to what I'm referencing, then by all means, we can have a discussion about it. But sometimes when you go for it, Queen, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to speak on some of the things you said, based particularly on other people having a certain image of you and how that can feed into your trauma. I feel like
Yeah.
I experienced that once I got older within my romantic relationship, because I believe the trauma obviously starts when you're a kid, and then certain behaviors remain and feed into your relationship and friendships and stuff like that. So I believe within my romantic relationship is where I experienced that the most, just having a certain image of me and making me feel like I had to uphold a certain image or be a certain person that I wasn't, and trying to please somebody else. And
Right,
that deeply affected me. That deeply like had a a horrible effect on my mind and my self-esteem. And I know I also play a part in allowing that to happen, but yeah, somebody say, even if your parents have a certain image of you, like you said, and putting all that pressure on you, that can cause a lot of weight on your body instead of allowing you to just be yourself, express yourself the way you want to express it, grow up the way you need to. Also, certain parents, especially in our community, in the Black community, kind of forcing our kids to grow up faster and play certain roles. It just all plays a factor in you not being able to be who you want to be and feeling like you always have to appease other people. So I do understand that.
right. And it was the hardest lesson for me, just realizing that I'm going on in life to basically be what everyone else wants me to be in their life. What I had to realize is, what is it that I want to be for myself? And then even when I realized what it is that I wanted to be for myself, I started to come to terms how I was also doing the very things to the people in my life, and how I was determining what I wanted them to be in my life, and how that was causing more problems as well. So, as you heal, as you learn, as you grow, as you start to identify who you truly are, and what that truly means to you, then you'll start to realize how not having that answer has somehow affected you and affected others around you.
So, Angie and Shawnee, I'm going to take an alternative route. You all are speaking on and elaborating on how this trauma can have you, right, present different positions to yourself in romantic ways, and have you view yourself in another way that's not really who you are, right? So I'm going to take
Right,
another opposition, so to speak. Sometimes when we have these traumas, it can make us have control issues, right? And want to control those who are around us, right? So for
right,
example, you've experienced so much trauma to the point where you feel like you had no say so, right? You had no voice. You lost your choice, right? You had these horrible experiences. That means whomever in your life, whether it be friends, whether it be romantic, whether it be other family members, you're going to try your best to control every move they make to prevent yourself, right, from reliving that trauma in your adulthood. right? The cliche
Right.
term now was like narcissism, right? We don't understand that oftentimes narcissists are not born, they are developed over time due to their experiences and due to them not growing and healing and due to them not getting the help they need or having worked through that trauma in a PSA in a professional manner. They now have developed a very toxic way of life and they tend to hold on so tight, right? And tend to prejudge, right? Tend to deflect, right? Tend to impose their trauma and their experience onto their partner, their friend, their coworker, whomever gets into that circle. That person who experienced trauma is now um, having negative, maybe having negative toxic interactions, attempting to control all those in their dynamic. So that's another way that we don't typically see how trauma can manifest itself. It is opposed to changing who you are. You want to control and change those who are around you.
Right. And that was a great point, Queen, because I wanted to even add on because you said something about control. And what I have learned through my healing process is the more you realize that you are not in control, the more free you become. When you realize that the only thing you can control is within you and that self, then you become in a place where you allow others to be who they are, accept who they are. You accept who you are in that, and then and then you're able to accept them as well for who they have chosen to be. You know, healing is acceptance. Healing is realizing that the characters, the ideas that we have in our mind is not necessarily fair if we're not allowing the ones that, anyone around us to choose the characters that they decide to be in life.
That was very, very powerful, and I do like that addition from Meek too. I thought that was really dope to contribute or even a very alternative perspective to put it out there that being a narcissist is a product of childhood trauma, and in most cases, it is of stemming from a mother wound or a father wound or some type of abandonment issue. So that is wonderful because typically we don't talk about narcissism from a place of empathy. We talk about it from a place of ridicule and judgment and not a level of understanding. And yes, it is typically the product of somebody that has suffered great traumas in their youth. So I appreciate that acknowledgement. That was really dope to add to the conversation. Um, and I commend you all too for the additions to the conversation. And thank you guys so much for keeping me covered. Angie, real quick, if you would just check on the last couple of comments on the chat and see if you have a different perspective. If not, Nina's just going to help us mod for the evening.
Yes, most definitely.
Um, as far as myself, when it comes to childhood trauma is, in my opinion, the biggest space. And if Angie, don't forget to hit your never mind, I'll get it.
The mute.
Yeah. Um, it's one of the most vital areas of self-awareness, one of the most vital areas of repair and shadow work, simply because it creates such a ripple effect into your adulthood. If you are not aware of these hindrances within yourself, these um uh if you would like to call weaknesses, they can not only provide insight to who you gravitate to, um, and also who you create within your children, also within your romantic compatibilities as well. If you understand these things about yourself, you'll understand what you gravitate towards, what you keep reliving. You'll understand the wounds you have within yourself, the areas of yourself that you're consistently trying to fill. Um, it's a big deal to have your identity intact. And what we don't realize is that childhood trauma fractures your identity. It fractures how you see yourself in its completion. And when it's fractured in that way, what happens is that you only show up as a part of the person you're capable of being, and you're operating missing a limb, if you will, not even realizing it. And you're engaging in your life, appearing and even thinking within your own mind that you're fully functioning, when in reality you are almost operating disabled or operating missing vital portions of yourself. And this could be lacking emotional intelligence. If I'll put it this way, the conversation around love languages, this is why childhood trauma, healing that or working on healing that is so vital, is because in your earliest years, your developmental years from childhood to roughly 12, 13 years old that's the most vital years. Those are your developmental years. Those are the years when you solidify your love language and your roadmap to what it means to love. So if you are in a environment where there's a lot of abuse, whether it be verbally or physically, you will likely connect that to your love map and your love language. And then that shows up later in how you handle your children and how you handle your your um your spouse. This is vital. When you are, we talk about how the traumas affect how you show up later on in life, but we don't talk about how it also disturbs your love map. It affects how you associate love with how you exist in the world. That's why when we have, it's common for us to say, this person doesn't love you if they put their hands on you. That's actually not a fact. It's not loving in the sense of, if you're healthy, you won't receive that as love. That's accurate. But is it possible for someone to engage in physically contacting you with their person and still love you? Yes, it is. Because as a child, you can be exposed to childhood trauma in physical abuse. And that child literally made a connection between love and physical abuse. In the same way that a woman can connect affection and love with promiscuity, typically because in her youth, she was associated with or introduced to intercourse entirely too early in a situation where she was fractured, and the time where it was most important in her developmental years for her to solidify what it means to love, her love roadmap, intercourse was implanted. The seed of that was implanted. So now this child grows up thinking that in order to be loved by someone else, she has to lend her body. And that's how promiscuity develops. And that typically comes about from being having your innocence taken from an adult at a very young age. You see what I'm saying? So it disturbs a lot. Childhood trauma contributes in a huge way to everything that you're going to become as an adult, in the same way that teaching you how to read, teaching you your ABCs, teaching you how to be polite. Those are the same things that the same seeds are planted during the same time frame. And if your love map is destroyed by something traumatizing, how you connect to all of those things in life is completely shattered and disrupted, which means that as an adult, you're not engaging with those things in life in a healthy fashion, but you don't know it's unhealthy because this was part of your environment. And in that way, we're all a product of our environment, because you grow up thinking this is okay, this is healthy, until you come in contact with someone that's actually healthy.
Afia, I find that very, very interesting and enlightening. You speak about how trauma can associate or help develop your links and so on to your love language, because there have been several stories. Out, my career on the other side of the world, right, is in law enforcement. So I have a lot of situations and calls where I have these family violence disputes, so to speak, and oftentimes the woman will call for our help, and then when we get there, she's like, "But don't hurt him." She's still associating this person who is clearly physically causing harm to the person that he or she loves. And it's so hard. I see them, they struggle in their psyche, right? And they struggle in their emotions of how to break it and how to get to the root of it. And oftentimes in the community, we see that when we get there and we see her, him, it is clearly a clear sign that it has been an ongoing, right, dynamic. It's her, what you say, her normal, right? It is now her normal. And because it's now her normal, a part of her or him understands something's not right, but it's so familiar to me, I just can't let it go, right? And that's what that's what I gathered from what you just said about, associating that trauma with your love language and or your love link, and it becoming your reality in your adulthood.
Absolutely. A lot of times, even, and the crazy thing is, typically we look at child trauma as things that, keep you up at night and give you nightmares, but we don't realize that a childhood trauma could be something as simple as growing up too fast, being a caregiver before you have the maturity to know what that means. You see what I'm saying? And then you evolve into a woman that's essentially playing mom to a man, and you're always in that kind of role, and you don't understand why. And it's literally because when you were in your developmental years, you were practically a parent to your siblings, practically an adult figure to the people that should have been caring for you as your guardians and your parents. You see what I'm saying? Those children that grow up in those instances where they're out in the street looking for their addicted mom, trying to find out where she is and they can't find her. And they're looking out for her, making sure she's going to the doctor, making sure she's doing this and she's doing that. They end up playing the same role in their romantic dynamic. And then they can't understand, like, why don't I ever have anybody pouring into me? This is a psychological programming that you didn't even know existed. Never mind, conversations outside of this, like religion and so on and so forth. You don't realize that how you coexist with your siblings, how you coexist with your parents, is setting the foundation for how you will coexist with your own children and your own partner in relationship. You see what I'm saying? If you are a submissive woman, in, as far as you were allowed to grow up as a child, as a little girl, and be in your innocent place all the way until you married a man, you will likely be able to maintain that submissiveness. But if you were a little girl that all of a sudden had to get a job and pay rent, if you were the type of girl that got kicked out for getting pregnant, if you were the type of girl who had a drunken father or an addicted mother, or, both of the parents weren't even available and you had to take over being a parental figure for your younger siblings, if you had been violated as a child and you couldn't even save yourself because you were looking out for your siblings, so you stayed, you know what I mean? Those girls end up being people who don't look to others to be saved, don't look to others to be contributed to. They're always looking to do for, they're always looking to serve someone else. And they don't realize that that conditioning, the very conditioning that helped you survive in your youth, will be a problem as an adult, because now you have solidified that so much that now it won't allow you to release control to anyone who's trying to come into your life and reestablish the groundwork. And those are typically the women who call men, you're trying to control me, because that's the perception that I've done things the way I needed to do things. I've found the way I needed to overcome, the way I needed to survive. And now here I am next to someone that's trying to run me in a situation that I've never been run in. You see what I'm saying? It's a lot harder to have some type of give. You tend to naturally rebel. And it's not because you're rebellious, it's because you're being introduced to a different way of life than anything you have known up until that point. Anybody would resist. The same is true. I tell people that, trauma is bigger than, I lost my innocence as a child. I saw something happen to someone really bad when I was a child. It's also my parents didn't nurture my voice as a child. So now I'm an adult that doesn't speak their mind. It's, I was sheltered as a child. So now as an adult, stepping outside my comfort zone is something that I will bite your head off for, because now going outside of the doors, stepping outside the boundaries scares the living hell out of me. So anybody who tries to push me to do anything new or step outside my comfort zone is an enemy, all because you were so sheltered and your parents were trying to protect you so much that they never let you establish confidence in your ability to conquer new things. You end up an adult that's afraid of them. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not just about, us personal trauma, and there's things that you, I guess, presuppose because of the environment you've been introduced to that need to be corrected. Things that you perceive to be unhealthy that are actually healthy because of the environment you grew up in. That whole don't talk when I, do what I say, don't do what I do. Those children end up adults with the same mindset, and they talk to their spouses like that. When I'm speaking, you're not speaking. You know what I mean? And they don't even realize it. When they were bullied as a kid, those people grow up and bully their spouses. They bully their children. To them, that's just how things go. To them, that's not trauma. The next door neighbor went through that. Everybody at the school went through that. They understand that to mean that's basic parenting. It's not traumatizing. What we equate to trauma is somebody lost their life, somebody was abused, somebody was like consistently, their how they see themselves is consistently torn to shreds. But there's subtle traumas that we carry with us that we don't even know we're carrying, not asking for help. That's one of the most major amongst women, not asking for help. With men, in my opinion, that's being vulnerable. Talking about what hurts, talking about what you feel inside. And that's because of what you've been subjected to in your immediate environment. And we carry that into adulthood. And when we get to adulthood, we try and force the people that love us to endure supporting that behavior, even though it's not healthy. And like I said, up until that point, no one has told you it's wrong. So to you, you're fighting the right fight, when in reality, you've been unhealthy your whole life in this particular context. You know what I mean? And that's where defensiveness comes into play too, because we resist, we walk away from relationships, we divorce, we do all of this just to run away from somebody telling you this is not the way this was supposed to go. Let's talk about this. And we assume they're doing something harmful because it's unfamiliar, it's uncomfortable, it's frightening. But that's unfortunately, that's what the process of healing looks like. And that's the aspect that we don't want to address. We only want to talk about violation of kids and that sort of thing, when in reality, it's you know what I mean? You need to learn to speak up for yourself. Simple stuff like that is trauma too.
Afia, I have a question. This is something only you can answer. This is in your area of one of your areas of expertise. You're
Okay.
talking about how men can be talking about submissive, right, with their woman. There could be a type of control that can stem from trauma. You being a
Yes.
life coach and really
Yes.
helping us, many of us, get to our divine feminine and more of our, soft feminine era and our, submissive era. How, this may be a question that may be in the chat, I'm unsure, right? But how do you help or coach us divine feminine ladies to look out for those signs, right? As we
Mhm.
find our divine feminine, as we find our natural submissive selves, how do you coach us, or is it possible to coach us of ways to look out for those other signs of submission not being healthy, right? And that particular man or quote unquote supposed leader, right, is
Mhm.
imposing his trauma, but trying to push that submissiveness in a unhealthy and toxic manner. And how does the divine feminine woman remain her divine feminine, but still speak her truth and have her voice in that situation? That makes sense.
It does. The first part of your question, how to acknowledge basically that a male counterpart does not have the qualities, necessarily worthy of that complete submission. Number one,
Correct.
it's going to come to you without resistance is the first indicator. Like if you have to sit there and go, well, I don't really know if you're, and question your vibes, it's probably because something is incomplete in most cases and your spidey senses are tingling. Now don't get me wrong, you have to be aware of your own trauma too, because I feel like if your idea is this person is controlling, you have to ask yourself, what specifically are they trying to control? Like things like how you dress and whoa, my bad, y'all. So I look, y'all gonna have to do that privately. That's ringing it. That's ringing for me. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I done lost the question. That was distracting. Oh, how do you notice a man being equipped to submit to him? I would inquire about what it means to submit is the number one question for me, because typically what you'll hear is a lot of men describe codependence, which is not healthy, versus interdependence is the healthy version of relationships. Codependence, dependency, those things are not healthy. While they might sound healthy, like for example, back in the day, and even sometimes now, you hear a lot of women say, oh, I'm independent. I got my own money. I got my own, right? And it sounds wonderful. But when you're talking to a man that you're considering for a relationship, being independent is not exactly a plus, because it comes off as if you're incapable of working with other people. And that's typically not what a woman means when she says independent. What she means is I'm self sufficient, have a job of my own, I can produce for myself, that kind of thing. But when you say independent, it's like code for I don't need you. Men kind of have the same type of conversation around that. They say dependence. They say, I want you to depend on me. You know what I mean? And there's a big difference between depending and allowing a person to lead. Allowing a person to lead means trusting him. Being dependent means that you cannot do for yourself, meaning that you literally would have trouble making it through without this person. And while there are marriages that do function like that, to hear an individual say that that's their preference, you may have to dive into that conversation a little more to see what that means, because it is not healthy that if something were to happen to you, you have the knowledge that I wouldn't know what to do. Essentially, the ship sinks once you're not on it, even with me on it, even with me and your kids on it. To say that out loud, because it's typically repeated rhetoric all over the internet, most people that say it don't know what it means. And that's what that means. It means that once you're out of my life, I can't take over. You know what I mean? I'm literally lost without you. Those women that are in that type of instance, and I talked about this a lot on my page where, I used to work in banking. I'm like, I had a woman come in and her husband has just passed away. I'm asking her what to do with the accounts. She just wants to pay the mortgage. Which account do you want me to take it from? How much you want me to take? Basic questions. She just broke down crying. He does everything. I don't know. I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? That's what dependency looks like. Can you imagine if this person has children, they don't know how to continue to keep the children's, lives consistent. Like, you know what I mean? That creates trauma for children. Dad passes away. Mom doesn't know what to do. The whole lifestyle changes. She can't explain it. She can't maintain it. So when you ask somebody, like, what does it mean to be submissive? What I would want to hear is trust, belief in me. You know what I mean? And a firm understanding that that's something that you demonstrate in consistency, not something that's just given to you, but something that comes by way of your demonstration. And so when you hear dependency, when you hear codependency described as what that means, or a conversation around, you talk, I don't talk type of thing, you know what I mean? I'm not saying make assumptions, but dig a little further into the conversation to know what they mean. Because keep in mind that the internet is running rampant. You have red pill conversations and all the rest of that. And unfortunately, everybody's getting their knowledge from the internet. So a lot of people are using, and I'll use narcissist, the word, as an example. A lot of people are using these words and they don't know what it means. So don't assume you're dealing with a controlling person or somebody that's not worth submitting to because they use the language. Everybody on the internet, everybody that has access to the internet is using the language. Most of them have not looked it up on their own. They're literally TikTok educated. You know what I mean? So have the conversation, make sure they know what it means, and then don't ever turn away from your spidey senses. Don't jump to conclusions, because you have your own filters too. You have your own blinders too. So you could be looking through the lens of trauma and that kind of stuff. So you don't want to project onto him. But if you're having that type of conversation and your insides are going, yeah, that doesn't sound, because in my opinion, it's a natural thing. And honestly, the discussion in itself may be a red flag. If you have to have a conversation about what it means to be submissive, you guys should just meet each other and kind of go with the flow type of thing. So it's like if it turns into like the highlight of the date conversation, you might want to ask yourself, what type of person am I dealing with? Because you never really have to, like, think about it this way. You never have to go on a date and say, I need a person that's going to respect me. We know that. You know what I mean? Because it comes with the way you behave when you're going to be in someone else's space. I feel like submission is just as natural. Femininity is just as natural. Masculinity is just as natural. If you have to sit at the table and go, yeah, I need a masculine man, in my opinion, that means something. Like maybe you already don't think he's masculine. You know what I mean? Or like you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to do that. And your intuition is everything. Ladies, everybody has it. Um, Even if it's just that little voice that's like something's not right, slow down a little bit, take your time, go over your thoughts, the things that stood out to you, your red flags. Always, always check your temperature there, because your spirit is more in tune than everything else. Your heart can be distracted, and your mind can always be distracted. Your heart will be distracted by your wounds, like your traumas. If you don't get enough attention, you don't get told you're beautiful enough, and this man keeps handing you all of that. He hands you enough to kind of get drunk off those compliments. You're not even rational anymore. So one thing that I always teach too is that your mind is always thinking about what's rational, what people think, how I'm going to look, that kind of thing. Your heart is always after what makes you feel good. Your spirit is the only component that looks out for the entire vessel. The other two are completely independent and out for themselves. So when your spidey senses are tingling, that's always spirit. And I'm like, to me, that's the one that you should at least listen to and process first. Because if you're following your heart, you're excluding another part of your body. You're following your thoughts, you're excluding another part of your body. Spirit always looks out for the full vessel, always. And that's where your alignment is. Even if it goes against something that you want to do, it'll be out for your good, mind, body, and soul. But that's so I don't talk y'all to death, because I can go.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask if you are struggling within your childhood trauma and that obviously increased to your adulthood within your romantic relationships, and say you don't have a clear sense of when something's like a red flag or if it's a green flag, and maybe you just are triggered by your own emotions, or if it's actually this person. Say if you're confused, should that person still date? Should that person still entertain people? And also I wanted to ask, because a lot of people say um, you are who you attract, but I believe you are who you entertain. So if you're deep within your trauma and you don't have a clear sense of self, and you're on a certain vibration, don't you think that you're continuously attracting a certain type of people? So is that also a reason to steer away from dating until you get to a different place within your healing? Not saying that you have to be 100%, good and healed, but is there levels to it?
I would say 100%. There's levels to everything, but the biggest thing is if you are like, for example, if in your day-to-day life, if you're by yourself and all alone, if you're with your friends, if you're on a date, you have that sinking feeling all the time, like, I don't feel good enough, I don't feel worth anything, like those kind of really depression type thoughts that make you feel like you're depleted. If you're in that state more of the day than not, definitely not ready to date, because what that means is that you are vulnerable to the first person that's willing to fill your cup back up. That means you're walking around with an empty cup and trying to, and typically when a woman is walking around with an empty cup, they date a lot because they're looking for a ray of sunshine to feel good, to feel happy, to feel like they're getting attention. And that's, attention for women typically satisfies the void temporarily, but it also sheds light on the fact that you know how to tap into your weaknesses. It's the equivalent of someone feeling depressed and going to get alcohol, someone feeling depressed and needing to hit the blunt to get through. You see what I'm saying? A woman that doesn't dive into the bottle or smoke, she might go on a date to get that little fix of attention because she doesn't feel pretty, because she doesn't feel sought after. She doesn't feel, you know what I mean? And so when you are in those modes and you're chasing to fill a void, you have no business dating, because that means you're completely vulnerable to the first person that makes you feel the slightest bit good. And that's dangerous. It's even more dangerous if you don't know you do that. You see what I'm saying? So that's a really big red flag for me personally. Like when you're craving to be fulfilled, like if you're in a good place when you can go out on a date or get asked out on a date and go, nah, I'd rather stay home. Not really in the mood to be out. You know, like when you are void inside, you'll say yes to somebody you don't even find attractive just to get that level of attention and fill yourself up. When you're entertaining yourself with people you don't have interest in, you're chasing your own brokenness, just trying to feel good in between time. And that's unhealthy for you, because if you're chasing feeling that well, that means you're likely to sleep with these people to feel good as well, which means you're susceptible to pregnancy, among other things. Um, that person could be crazy. He might not be all there. You see what I'm saying? And you're also subjecting yourself to being stuck with this person for the rest of your life. And you wouldn't see any of that because you're hurting. And so I'm sorry, go ahead, Angie.
I'm sorry, I got I got so into it. I wanted to go back to the statement that Shawnee made about how you know people around are basically within, I can't remember the statement, but they're basically within uh your vibration or level of understanding. So basically you want to see things as a reflection of your own thoughts. So whatever you have in your life, or whatever is around you, or whatever you even find yourself entertaining, it is a reflection of how you perceive and how you understand. So in those moments, you always want to um think of life as a grand experience, a scientific experience, where why is this happening here, why is this person here, what does this mean, what am I not seeing within myself, or what am I growing from within myself. This is how you start to understand how certain things either continue to come about, or how certain things are happening to you. Everyone and everything is an experience or a reflection of how you see yourself, how you understand yourself. And so when you have this understanding of that, there's something that I need to understand of myself, you start to be able to change who, if that was the statement, who you entertain. You start to change who is around you, because you start to change within. Everything starts with you first.
I wanted to say something. You guys, this topic is so dear to my heart, and I get so drawn in thinking about my own journey. But I want to go back just a tad bit to the quote unquote serial dater, right? Who's looking for that fix that Afia was talking about. I don't know if we all understand or have knowledge of, right? I want to share this on a spiritual level. When Afia was talking about dating, potentially, right, dating all the time, potentially engaging in sexual activities, potentially having babies, so on and so forth. As ladies, as divine feminine energies, we are receivers, right? So as you begin, this is on a spiritual level with transcends down to the 5D or the physical world. So we are receivers, right? We have wombs, our orifices are receivers. We are meant to receive things. So as you begin to date these different people, those are different energies and different traumas you are allowing in your space. If you continue on and go the other route, like Afia was saying, to the sexual nature, now you have allowed this trauma within yourself. Now you have your own trauma internally, their own trauma internally. Now we have a baby. Now this baby has a broken home. Now they have your trauma, daddy's trauma, and potentially that will form their own trauma. So now it's a cycle, it's a spiral, it's a tornado, it's a hurricane out of control. And another thing, do we all know or have knowledge of when you engage in sexual activities and or children, you are in a marriage. So while we are, thinking about our healing and our journey and our cleansing and our growth, understand everything we do as divine feminine, it is a snowball effect. We are the original mothers. We are the first teachers. We are the givers of life. So let's be very careful and knowledgeable about how we transcend our trauma and how we allow other traumas in us to manifest bigger and like just longer versions of that trauma. It's a bloodline thing if you're not careful to cut it off sooner than later. Just want to point that out.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for even drawing attention to that, because that is true. Ultimately, us as the women, we have a duty, we have a responsibility to protect our womb. And when we're traumatized, also, not only who you allow to enter your body stays there, potentially your baby grows and marinates in that same liquid of love. Also, considering, yes, Lakeisha, please DM me. Also, when you don't deal with your trauma, you store it in your body as a woman. One thing that I discovered about myself was, prior to having Samik, was that there's aspect of dealing with trauma that you think you're in other words, in the process of healing, when in reality, you're storing it somewhere else. And as a woman, what we don't know and what we don't get educated about is that when you are experiencing trauma and you don't have a safe space, you don't have an outlet, you're not going to therapy, and you're also in survival mode, we store our stress in our womb. And when you store stress in your womb, you clench your muscles and you pack it in there. So think about your trauma, your tense muscles, then allowing people to enter your body. So you have unresolved issues of your own. You're allowing people to enter your body with unresolved issues. You're clenching your muscles and packing down all that stress in your body. That gives life to autoimmune disorders as well. So if you look at things like, forgive me, MS, lupus, those kinds of things, those are typically sources of unearthed and undealt with trauma that's been stored in the womb, like, believe it or not. And it's like, in my own research, that was a difficult pill to swallow. Was like, I had something to do with this. You know what I mean? And of course, that's not 100% through and through. But when you can connect one thing to the other, and when you do the research on migraines, depression, anxiety, consistent migraines, autoimmune diseases, and those sort of things. And then when you do the legwork and travel with it, and you get to unresolved childhood trauma and stress, it's like, really consider. And when you're having children and maintaining romantic relationships, those things being healthy are greatly contingent on our ability to be healthy of sound mind and body. You can't teach emotional intelligence you don't have. You can't teach peace that you don't have. You can't maintain an environment that you can't maintain within your own body. And so when you're engaging in being a wife, you're engaging in being a mother, that's it trickles down, like, you know what I mean, building blocks, like a domino effect. Is so the work that you do as a woman to not address your unearthed trauma. Then you go chasing feeling good. Then you hook up with a man. Then you chasing feeling good with him. Then you get pregnant. Now you're chasing feeling good with your child. The whole time, you still have that unearthed chaos within your body. Eventually it catches up to you, and now it's the excess fatigue, the diet that's all over the place, and your eating habits, the cravings of sugar. All of those things are testaments to the imbalance going on in your body, not being able to get rid of your fupa. You know what I mean? That is a manifestation of high, and if not overly high, cortisol levels. You see what I'm saying? And I'm like, which is a product of stress. You know what I mean? So us being proficient in how we maintain our natural state as women contribute to how we show up as mothers, contribute to how we show up as wives, contribute to how we show up for ourselves. So it's literally a domino effect. So it's like, if you're not in a place to be able to say, I got working on me to do, and literally you should have, like, honestly, in my opinion, when you're not in a relationship, you should be on a cleanse, as far as like literally taking time off from engaging with men, abstinence. That should be a time of reflecting, cleansing, meditation, making sure you don't have anything unresolved in your body, because how else will you not bring that junk into your next relationship? If you're in, you have some of those like habitual daters, like, she's always in a relationship. That means she's taking this to there, to there, to there. She's not cleaning it up. She's not talking about it. She's not going to therapy and proclaims everything is all right. And it's like doing a world of hurt to yourself from the inside out. You can be as beautiful as you want to be, mama, but if your insides are falling apart, it doesn't matter. And that's, at some point as women, we have to get intentional about being divinely feminine and prioritizing our experience and our alignment within our body, because you cannot sustain peace, submission, femininity without doing so. And that's just the truth of it all. We went 3 minutes over. I want to say that, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel get on the same page with Meek, that I feel like we're not done here, but I would hate to do a part three, but then I would love to at the same time. But I thought this was a really dope conversation. I appreciate everyone's contribution to the conversation. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for your patience with me. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulties. It looks like StreamYard is down, or we had trouble getting our last member up today. So apologies for my distraction. If any of you guys want to add a little bit before we sign off, I'll give you guys the floor.
I think that this is a beautiful discussion. And honestly, you know, I know part three is like, whoa, but it can be so many parts to this discussion because there's so many forms of perspectives that people gain throughout childhood traumas. And I think it could just help with everyone, if anybody sees the desire in continuing this topic, because it's a very meaningful topic. I'm so grateful to be a part of this panel. Thank you so much, Lacey, for bringing this together. This is so necessary for us all, especially me. I truly appreciate it.
I just want to say I'm definitely on board with Angie and Afia with this part three potentially, because you know as we grow and Afia grows this beautiful panel on this beautiful platform. This is a foundational piece, and it's going to be very very you know there's layers to it, right? So for us, in order for us to build on this journey to our divine family, we have to start at the root to have rebirth. So I feel like if there's a part three in the midst, it is all divine timing. I welcome it. I am open to it. And believe it or not, you guys, as we are panel members, we have our perspective. I am also healing. And this discussion, I'm telling you, I tear up every time. So I think that if people are open in the chat, if Afia, Angie, Shawnee, and Nina are open to continuing on, and there is a need, right, in our divine feminine, in our world here, I am open. I am ready. I'm grateful. I'm appreciative. And our hate is over. I really do. It went by too fast.
Absolutely. And then too, I feel like we just didn't do it justice without Nina's contribution. I also want to say that if you're still listening in the chat, Miss Nina, please know that you were missed. And I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties this evening. We have been planning all week for this. So this definitely wasn't anticipated on our end. But I definitely want you to know, like, and I wouldn't want to wrap this up without you. So I feel like in your honor, let's do it.
I definitely agree. I feel like this is a big discussion and so many aspects of it that need to be touched on. And it's pretty much the root of everything. What I wanted to suggest is maybe if there is a part three, maybe anyone that's watching on Facebook or YouTube, if anyone has any questions that maybe we can bounce off of and touch, outside of us having our questions, if anyone in the chat has a question that they've been meaning to ask, maybe we can answer some questions for them.
Okay.
And if you guys want, if anyone in the chat wants, like, discreet, right? You can always DM or write. I feel that okay. They want to have discreet,
Absolutely.
privacy, anonymous question. How can they do that? For that
I
panel?
would advise to DM me on Instagram. That's Ifia Imara _rise. Since I'm already on there discussing, making sure everything is copacetic with the ladies on the panel, it'll be easy to switch to a different conversation since I'm already on there. So you guys can send your questions there. And while we're doing our kind of brief outro, and mostly everybody's here. I also wanted to let you guys know that as of January 28th, we'll be doing twice a week. We'll be doing Tuesday at 7:30 and Friday at 7:30. But our Tuesday segment is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do our conversation of the day for the first part of that hour, and then we're going to have our caller of the day for the second part of that hour. And I appreciate Miss Lakeisha for bringing that up because she says she wants to come up. So we already planned to upgrade how we conduct our conversations. So on Tuesdays, that will be available to have a person come up and ask a question, and we can all converse on the panel together. So I'm really excited about that. The debut for the first day of our twice a week will be starting on the 28th again on Tuesday. In this month of January. I appreciate all of you guys being here, and when I tell you, like, this is a big dream come true for me to have some of the most powerful women on the panel with me. So I'm like, even though I teach all the time, I still get nerves. And this is our third one, and I'm super excited about that because I'm just like, it's a joy to be up here with you guys. It really is. And so I want to tell you guys, thank you guys again for being here. Please hit that like button. I got to get used to saying that. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share. And check us out next Friday for our third part of childhood trauma. I appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us and show love to everybody else. And we're here for the growth. We're here for the growth. And so you guys have a wonderful evening. Ladies, I'm going to go ahead and start this calm little tune while you guys work your way on the exit. And
Bye. See you next Friday.
Bye. See you
Bye,
next Friday.
everybody.
See you later.